We are live again. Welcome back to another episode of Front of Dish. If this is your first time, welcome. We are on episode 5 of the preview series. This is the preseason series. We're looking at all 30 teams division by division, and we're breaking them down. We're comparing my analysis to Pacoda standings. Pacoda is a simulation system built by Baseball Prospectus that evaluates player talent. They put numbers in their computer, they type it in, they run the sim, and it spits out numbers based on player performance. They put all those numbers together, team by team, and they project who they believe will win each division. They have records for every team within a division. And we're going to go through this in reverse chronological order. And we're going to see if Pacoda and I agree. Hey, look, so far, I'm not going to lie, y'all. Um, Pacoda's been pretty on point. I'm not going to hold y'all, but we have a very interesting division today in the National League West. Compiles the Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Giants, Padres, and Rockies. And let's get in it. Let's get to it. So we are looking at the very first team. There's no surprise at who's at the bottom. In fact, this is one of two teams. Honestly, well, Pacoda changes every day. Pacoda changes every day. Forgot to mention the date on this one. I'm recording this on Monday, March 18th. Um, so yeah, these are projections as of Monday, March 18th. We had some breaking news before I started the show about the Giants. We'll get there when we get there. It looks like it didn't impact the standings too much, but we'll see. We'll see. Right now, no surprise at who's at the bottom. It's the Colorado Rockies. They are projected to be one of, if not the worst team in all of baseball. Pacoda has them losing 105 games, which that's not that crazy, honestly. 105 losses is not that crazy for this Rockies team. Because when I look at this roster, I don't see a lot of hope. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Uh, I don't even know where to start with a team like this. This roster is pretty putrid. Ownership has done nothing to address the roster. They seem kind of okay with being the worst team in the league. I mean, year after year, they don't really do much. I mean, especially ever since the Nolan Arenado trade way back when. Yeah, the Rockies, they just haven't had an identity. They they haven't drafted well. They haven't signed anyone. They haven't traded for anyone. I mean, they're just kind of stuck being awful. And the people of Colorado deserve better. When I was in Denver last January, there was some very, very passionate fans there. I went to a Nuggets game. I also went to a Broncos game. Their fans are just dying to cheer for something when it comes to baseball because their other three professional teams, including the Avalanche, have done very well. So, um, yeah, the Rockies. I mean, the storyline here for the Rockies, really, as always, is where will they find pitching? And that's starting pitching and that's a bullpen. They don't really have much on either side, if we're gonna be completely honest here. I'm looking at their roster now, and man, I mean, when Kyle Freeland is your best pitcher, that says a lot about where your team is right now. Um, but obviously the storyline with Colorado is always going to be Coors Field where they play. High offensive environment, even throughout their minor league systems. They play in very high offensive environments. So it's extremely difficult for them to find talent, develop pitching, sign pitchers. Pitchers don't want to go there because you're just going to get beat up if you play there. Um, I mean, if we're looking at what they have, they got Kyle Freeland at the top. He pitched for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. That's probably like the biggest highlight for the Rockies in, a couple years. Um, but yeah, after that, I mean, German Marquez, he got Tommy John surgery last year, so he might not be back to the All-Star break. Antonio Senzatella, he got Tommy John surgery. He's out all season. So, you know, they're really relying on Kyle Freeland and Quantrill here. And even their top pitching prospects, their three top pitching prospects underwent Tommy John surgery. So, no hope in the minor league system either. Their farm director is probably sweating bullets right now. He's shitting his pants. He doesn't know what to do. Um, and you know, after Freeland and Quantrill, they got Gomber. Austin Gomber. He had a solid second half last year, about a 3.38 ERA. Will he continue that? We don't know. His projections is a 5.50 ERA. So, he'll be giving up about 6 runs per nine, which is not exciting. Um, they brought in Dakota Hudson, but Dakota Hudson, I mean, he hasn't been the same since he had Tommy John, and that was a few years back. He had some decent seasons with St. Louis prior to having Tommy John surgery, but I mean, that's pretty much all they really added to this roster. Dakota Hudson. And I mean, they got Jalen Beeks and Anthony Molina. They're going to be in the bullpen, both coming from the Rays. The Rays have a pitching factory, but I don't even think the Rays can save this Colorado pitching staff. So, I mean, they rank 30th in most pitching metrics. I think they'll stay there. There's no reason to believe they won't stay 30th. And I mean, even if you look at their farm, you look at their prospects that are coming up. They got Chase Dollinger. He pitched at Tennessee a couple years ago, but I mean, he wasn't too impressive in college. He spent 3 years there, and I mean, he hasn't really done much on the pro level yet. So, not a great amateur career so far, an underwhelming pro career. I still don't know what we're gonna get out of him. Um, they got Peter Lambert. He's still looking to cement himself, but I mean, he's got limited experience here. Um, and then, they got Noah Davis who's fighting for a spot as well, but he's been largely underwhelming in the MLB too. So again, I mean, where do you find answers here? Where do you find answers if you're the Colorado Rockies? It's just looking bleak. The bullpen, I mean, Jalen Beeks and Anthony Molina, like I said, those are like the two guys. But outside of that, I mean, if you're looking at anyone else, I mean, Nick Mears had a decent year last year, and so did Justin Lawrence. But outside of that, I don't really know what they're gonna do. It's just bleak for them. And to kind of stop getting on their pitching a little bit here, I'm gonna transition to them signing Charlie Blackman. They brought him back, but again, he's been an okay player over the last few years. Good, not great, even in Coors Field with that high offensive environment. And then uh, they brought Charlie Blackman back, and I get it. He is the definitive Colorado Rocky. He's been there his entire career. He should retire there. Um, but they brought him back for 1 year, 13 million. I'm thinking, yo, I mean, you're not paying anyone else. So I mean, fuck it. Open up the checkbook. Why not? But I don't understand why you signed Charlie Blackman for that price tag. And they signed him early in the offseason. So I guess they didn't see the market ending up the way that it did. I mean, they could have signed him for a lot less. But again, who else are you really gonna pay if you're the Rockies? So You might as well pay a guy that's been there for a decade and a half at this point. Um, and I mean, other than that, another storyline here is Chris Bryant, of course. That's the biggest storyline. What are you gonna get from Chris Bryant? Will he finally, will he finally contribute to this Rockies team? Remember, they signed him for 7 years and $182 million a couple seasons ago in 2022. So this was their big fish. Don't know why they signed him. It just didn't feel right. Maybe, they were just trying to find a way to replace Arenado. And they're just like, here you go. Here, you want money? Take some money, Chris Bryant. And Chris Bryant's a Vegas local. He's like, okay, I'm close to home. And I can, I guess he feels accomplished in his career. He's won a rookie of the year, right? He's won an MVP. He's won a World Series. Maybe he's just comfortable. He just wants to be close to home. But I mean, if we're looking at his stats as a Colorado Rocky, we're talking about 2 seasons. Over 2 seasons, he's only played 122 games. He's only played 122 games. Now, mind you, while he's been on the field, he's been okay. He's been okay, 740 OPS. But I mean, if you're playing in cores of 404 slugging, that's not going to cut it. You'd like a little more than that. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to pencil them in every day. And they just haven't been able to. So the huge storyline here is like, what are you going to get from Chris Bryant? And they're going to move him to first. I think that's the right move because obviously he hasn't been healthy. Why keep him at third? So it's just a really weird situation for this team. This is like a team that just has no vision, no hope, no anything. I don't know what you can expect from this team, really, truthfully. Um, Another storyline here is Brendan Rodgers. What are you gonna do with him? Do you trade him? I mean, he's like the really only interesting piece here that you can maybe get rid of. I apologize. Nolan Jones too. Nolan Jones had a sensational season. He should probably slot into their cleanup role. He had a great rookie season. He's looking like he's gonna be a star, but again, one guy is not enough. Brendan Rodgers, he won a Gold Glove in 2022. He was once a top prospect for this team. Um, I like his game. I thought that he would transition a little better, but now he's been in the league for 4 seasons. He's 27 years old now. Um, he was a top 3 pick. He hasn't really panned out. He was once in trade talks with the Marlins for some of their pitchers. But, if you're the Rockies, there's really no reason to even be urgent to trade him because even if you do trade Brendan Rodgers, I mean, does it really make your team not lose 100 games? I don't know, man. I just don't know about this Rockies team. If you're a Rockies fan, I mean, you're like, okay, well, maybe we can look forward to the future. But then again, you look at their farm, there's not really much there either. I think they only got one top 100 guy, and that's about it. So this team just has a bleak outlook no matter how you look at it. And unfortunately, I mean, the only thing you can really look forward to if you're a Rockies fan is going to the beautiful ballpark, getting some cheap tickets, eating some good food, I would imagine, because Denver's a great city for food. And you kind of hang out and get ready for another top draft pick. Cause I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't even this isn't even an entertaining team. Like if you're my motto is if you're gonna be bad, at least be fun to watch. I don't even think the Rockies are gonna be fun to watch. So yeah, I think this is the worst team in the league. I think they're worse than the A's, and I think they're worse than one other team that Pacoda projects to be in this realm of 100 losses. We'll get there next week. I'm sure you can guess who that is at this point. Process of elimination, but yeah, Rockies. It's looking bad. It's looking real bad. Let me see. Pacoda has them losing 105 games. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they lose like 110 because, no one wants to root for injuries. I'm not saying that I'm rooting for injuries, but guys are going to get hurt. And, your top guys are already struggling to muster wins. I mean, if some of them go down, I don't know what you do. So, yeah, I think this team can lose 110 games. So that's where I'm at with the Rockies. Now, on to a jumbled middle of the pack. We have the San Diego Padres at number 4. Pacoda's got them exactly perfectly average at 81 and 81 with a 30% chance to win a wild card and a 31% chance to reach the playoffs. Now, I think they're being a little mean, a little rude to the Padres. Um, I think the Padres are a good team. I think last year was a one-off. You just write that season off. Um, I think this is a good roster still. I know they've lost a lot of guys. That's really the story here for the Padres is the amount of turnover that this team has had. Um, you know, you had your manager Bob Melvin pull a Craig Counsell, and he switched teams. You had your manager go to a division rival. Ouch. You lost your best hitter in Soto. Ouch. You lost your best pitcher in Snell. Ouch. And you lost your best reliever and your closer, one of the best closers of the generation, in Josh Hader. Major yikes. So, yeah, man. Uh, that's a lot to lose. And then that doesn't even, mention other guys. I mean, we're talking about Seth Lugo. We're talking about Michael Waka. We're talking about Nick Martinez. We're talking about, I mean, they have lost a lot of guys here. And while they did lose a lot of guys, I still do think that this is a pretty good team. And I think they're a little better than 81 and 81. I'm not going to hold you. And here's why. I like what they've done. I like what they've added. They added Wandy Peralta, Go, Yuki Matsui. You're going to throw all three of those guys into the bullpen in what's essentially a revamped bullpen at this point. And obviously there's a glaring hole with Hader missing, but on paper, I think that they have some depth in this bullpen. There's some high upside here. But at the same time, there's some low floors. So a lot of volatility in the bullpen, and I think that's why Pacoda doesn't really love them that much. But I really like what they did. Peralta, ground ball pitcher. His ERA may be a little misleading last year because his FIP was significantly higher. He had a FIP of 5. When you get into 5 territory with your FIP, that's alarming, especially with a ground ball pitcher. Um, and then, you got Woo Suk Go. He came over from the KBO. What a name, by the way. Woo Suk Go. He came over from the Korean Professional League. Um, he's not going to be their closer right away, even though in Korea he was an elite closer. He got 139 saves over 5 seasons. So maybe you throw him as a setup role or maybe seventh inning kind of guy. And then you got Yuki Matsui. He's also one of those overseas guys. Um, he came over from Japan and he's a lefty. So that's nice. You get a couple lefties in the bullpen. And he's the youngest pitcher in Japanese Major League history to reach 200 saves. But I also don't think he'll be a closer here. You know, to have two guys come over from overseas who were closers and then to have them close out games immediately is kind of crazy. So I don't think the Padres will go that route. So I really like what they added there. And you have to remember too, this is a team that exceeded their payroll. They shattered records. We found out that they took out a $50 million loan just to even pay their players. So they had to kind of pivot here, and you see that they brought over some cheaper options, guys from overseas, some unproven guys, but they got high upside. And then they also had to get in their trade bag because they didn't have a lot of money to spend. So you use players that you have and you use them as capital to acquire more players. And I think they did that excellent this year, honestly. Um, obviously, the headline here is Dylan Cease. They got him earlier this week. He'll have a better defense behind him, and he's going to be in a pitcher park, so you can kind of expect him to bounce back. He's going to be on a club with a little bit better culture than Chicago was, the Chicago Sox. There's been questions about the Padres clubhouse culture over the last year or two, but I would imagine this is a better situation for Dylan Cease. He's going to be on a team fighting for a playoff spot. That may give him a breath of fresh air, some new life. He can bounce back. And then, if we're going to talk about the rotation, since we're on the rotation, this rotation is strong. This is a really, really good rotation here. Obviously, they got Michael King and Johnny Brito. They got them to fill out the rotation in the Juan Soto trade. And, I think that's a good return because now you got two guys at the back of your rotation. Michael King was good in New York. Johnny Brito was also good in New York. So I really like that. And then they also got Kyle Higashioka in that trade, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and he's a defense first catcher. You'll have him split with Campusano, and that's a decent catching tandem. So I do like what the Padres did when it came to trades, because I mean that's pretty much what they had to do to fill out this roster to compete, just based on what they lost. Because again, they lost so much. Um, but yeah, I think their bullpen is good. I think their rotation is good. Their lineup is top heavy, but I think there's some potential here. Obviously, the storyline here is what will you get from the other guys? Because obviously you got Xander, he's bouncing back from a wrist injury. You're hoping he finds himself. You move him to second base because of that wrist injury and some other things that he had been battling throughout the course of 2023. You're hoping you get a little more out of him. He had a bit of a down year, which says a lot about Xander, because he didn't have a bad year by any stretch of the imagination. But you're hoping maybe you get a little bit more. Um, and then obviously you got Fernando Tatis Jr. He's in right. That's gonna be fun. He's coming off a platinum glove, and then Manny Machado. Manny Machado's been dealing with some elbow issues. He got elbow surgery, so he'll probably get some time at DH. I think if you get Manny focusing on just hitting, that can be scary. That's a 30 home run guy, 30 double guy. I love it. You lose his defense at third, though. I think that's a little scary. So we'll see how Graham Pauly, he's a non-roster invite. He's got a strong bat in single A, double A. He was their minor league player of the year. So if you're San Diego, you're hoping he can fill in for Machado. We'll see what he brings. Um, and then you got Jackson Merrill, who just got the call the other day, about a day or two ago before recording this. He's their number 12 prospect overall. He's only 20 years old. There's definitely some risk here, though, because he hasn't played higher than double A. So they're having him completely skip triple A because they couldn't find any outfielders. The Padres, that was the big question all offseason. Who the hell is going to play in your outfield? They bring up Jackson Merrill. Jackson Merrill is going to be slotted in center, I would assume, because they brought back Profar. He'll be in left. Obviously, Tatis just won a platinum glove in right. They'll have him in right. So Jackson Merrill kind of slots in a center. And mind you, he came up as a shortstop. They transitioned him to left in double A, single A and double A. And now they want him to play center. And he's never played center in his entire pro career. So that'll be interesting. But he's got a high ceiling. Jackson Merrill is definitely an interesting kid. He doesn't walk much, so we'll see what his bat to ball skills look like. Maybe he can, yeah, provide some hits at the bottom of that lineup. Maybe set up Xander and Fernando, and then you got Kim. He's gonna take over for shortstop and for Xander because you got to preserve Xander. And honestly, I think Kim is the better option anyway. Because Kim last year he showed that he's an elite defender. So I really like what they've done with this team. I think they've got upside. They've got some guys who have been around, so there's a nice mix of consistency. They got some young guys coming up in the lineup, with Graham and Jackson. Um, but the problem here with the Padres and what scares me is if some of their guys go down, the lack of depth is really concerning here when it comes to the position player side, especially in the outfield. Um, I would imagine they swing another deal for a couple of guys at the deadline if they're still in it. But as of right now, this is what they're rolling with, and uh, honestly, I do like it. Barring if everyone stays healthy, that's the key here. If they stay healthy, I do like this Padres team. I do think that they are gonna compete for a wild card. The NL wild card race is gonna be nuts, by the way. There's so many fun teams here. But we'll see what happens with the Padres. They've got some exciting young guys in their prospect pool. None of them are very close to the majors. We've heard about Ethan Salas a lot this offseason. He's 17 years old. I don't think they'll call him up anytime soon. And then Jackson Merrill's only 20. And then they got Leo DeVries. He's 17. So they got high upside, but their guys are a long way away. So it's like, do you trade some of these prospects that are 2, maybe even 3 years away to supplement the major league roster and compete with the likes of the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks and so on and so forth? So Padres, high ceiling, but their lack of depth scares me. Now, Pacoda has them at 81 and 81. I think that's light. I think that's light. I think this team could win more games than that. I don't think they're quite a 90 win team. They could be. They could be. But that's if everything goes right. And again, we don't know how Manny's gonna look with that elbows thing going on. Um, so I'm gonna split it down the middle. They have 80. I think 90's high. So I'll give them about 85 wins. I will give the Padres about 85 wins. And if we're looking at the NL wild card race, that puts them right in the thick of things. Now, on to the third team here. This one was a bit of a surprise for me. I'm surprised they had the Giants, the San Francisco Giants over the Padres. And that was even before getting Blake Snell. Now, baseball perspectives, Pacoda, they're probably what I'm thinking is they're looking at more sure guys here, I guess. But then again, I'm like, no one here, they have as many question marks as the Padres. Granted, Pacoda has the Giants at 83 versus San Diego's 81. So we're talking 2 wins. But if you're looking at the playoff percentage, they gave them almost a 15% better chance to make the playoffs than the Padres. So they're giving San Francisco just about almost a you know, 1 in 2 chance to make the playoffs at 50%. And I don't know if I agree with that. Not looking at this roster. Now, I do like what they did this offseason. Of all the teams in this division outside of the Dodgers, of course, um, I think they had the best offseason of the 4 competing clubs. Um, the narrative here, though, for them early on, congrats on them for changing the narrative. But the narrative over the last couple of years was We'll never land any big free agents. No one wants to come here. San Francisco is just like a second grade city, no, a second rate city. No one wants to live here. No one wants to be here. You had Buster Posey coming out, and he had his fair share of comments talking about the current outlook of the Giants and how it looked bleak and how he doesn't know how they're going to attract guys. And they flipped the script. They flipped the script. Ever since missing out on Otani, they have completely flipped the script here. Um, I really like what they did here. They had a home run of an offseason. They did just about everything they could. Um, they added Jung Ho Lee. That was their first signing this offseason. The first splash. Uh, Jung Ho Lee, he is a left-hand hitting center fielder out of KBO, Korean baseball. And they gave him 6 years. Never played in baseball, in Major League Baseball. They gave him 6 years. 113 big ones. He's only 25 years old. He was a star in KBO. Um, but there's some questions about his defense. His defense is he can get by in center, but he's not the quickest guy, doesn't have the best glove. He's not overly athletic. He doesn't blow you away. But the good thing about Jung Hoo Lee, and this is exactly what this team needs, is he's got great on base skills. So, you know, Fangraphs has him projected to have a 350 OBP. That's pretty solid. That's actually really good. So he's got some on base skills here, and he'll be leading off. He's had some trouble this spring. He's even a little banged up now, so he's going to be rehabbing. But that's a very solid pickup. That brings some excitement to the city. That was kind of their answer to Shohei. Obviously, I mean, there's no answer to Shohei going to the Dodgers, but bringing in Lee kind of helped a little bit, ease the blow a little bit. Then they also brought in Tom Murphy. That's a solid signing, kind of under the radar. He'll split time with Patrick Bailey. Um, and then it starts to really ramp up here. They got Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks was a very interesting pickup. They were talking about putting him in the rotation, even though he was in the bullpen and up in Toronto and was relatively effective. They're going to try to convert him into a starter. That's to be seen. We don't know what we're going to get out of him. He's wild. We're going to see if the velocity plays over several innings. Um, so question mark there, but interesting to see if they can kind of fix Jordan Hicks, or I don't even know if fix is the right word, but kind of retool Jordan Hicks. And then they also brought in Jorge Soler. Now this is when things really started to pick up in San Fran. Now, if you're a San Francisco fan, you're kind of getting juiced here. You get Jorge Soler. Craziest stat that I saw this offseason was that the San Francisco Giants have not had a 30 home run hitter since Barry Bonds in 2004. We're talking about 20 years that they haven't had a guy hit 30 homers. They probably saw that stat and were like, "Hey, look, get on the phone. Get on the phone. Call JD Martinez." He declined. Well, we're getting Jorge Soler, and we are slotting him right in the middle of this lineup, and they have a legit 30 home run threat. He hit 36 last year. So if you're a Giants fan, you really feel like your team's cooking now. And then after that, they got Pablo Sandoval. They brought him back. Um, Joking, obviously. But after that, I mean, now they really ramped it up. They got Matt Chapman. That's an obvious fit. Third base has been a little bit of a hole for San Francisco. He's going to bring Gold Glove defense over to third. He doesn't really solve their hitting issues, though. You know, Matt Chapman is a weird case because if you look at his Savant page indicates that he should be a way better hitter than he is. But he just doesn't get results. He hits a lot of line drives. He hits the ball hard, but it doesn't amount to hits. And he's got some Ks, some strikeouts. So we'll see what they get from him. And then today, I was gonna record last night. I'm glad I didn't record last night because today, a couple hours ago, they signed Blake Snell. Hello. They got Blake Snell. That's a splash. I mean, he was an obvious fit. He's a West Coast guy. He said he wanted to stay in the West. He preferred to play for the Angels. Angels didn't want to spend money. Next best thing, go up to San Francisco and go up there and pitch with Logan Webb. Because prior to Blake Snell coming to this team, this rotation was hell. I was just like, bro, I don't see it. But even with Blake Snell here, obviously Blake Snell is not a high inning guy. So they're still gonna need guys to eat up innings here. I don't know if Blake Snell necessarily solves that problem, but at least he's very good at run prevention. I obviously, he has some issues there with command. He walks a lot of guys. He walked nearly 11% of batters over his career. And last year, he walked 13% of hitters that he faced. That's the highest of his career. So that's not a good trend if you're looking to sign a big time free agent pitcher. He also led all of majors with 99 walks last season, and he still almost swept Cy Young by receiving 28 of 30 first place votes. And Blake Snell's a weird one. He's won a Cy Young in the American League with the Rays, and then he also won one in the National League with the Padres. Now he joins elite company here, which is probably why he was looking for elite money when he hit the market, because the only other guys to do that, to have multiple Cy Young awards, is Max Scherzer, Hall of Famer, Clayton Kershaw, Hall of Famer, Justin Verlander, Hall of Famer, and Jacob DeGrom, who's a Hall of Fame talent, but injuries have kind of, put his Hall of Fame candidacy in question. But you can argue that Jacob DeGrom will be a Hall of Famer one day. So, I mean, elite company, elite company. And then on top of that, um he finished with the best ERA in MLB at 2.25. He struck out 31 and a half of the opposing hitters. Only Spencer Strider and Tyler Glasnow in that company with him. And he had a lot of swing and miss, which was, if we're talking swing and miss, he was right there with Spencer Strider, who most people will say is a top 5 pitcher right now. So it's very strange that teams didn't want him and that Blake Snell landed on the Giants 10 days before opening day and got a 2-year deal for $62 million. He's never been a bad pitcher in his career, ever. But, you know, um, when you're someone who only has had Cy Young votes in 2 seasons, and he won both those seasons, and then all the seasons that are sandwiched in between are kinda meh, it just makes it makes it really hard to evaluate Snell. And I think that this offseason with Matt Chapman and with Blake Snell going to the Giants, I think this shows that front offices are looking at free agents a lot different now. And they're kind of staying away from those long-term deals because before it's like, Blake Snell hits the market, he's 31 years old, and he gets an 8-year, $200 million deal. And how often do those work out? So I think teams have just gotten smarter about these contracts. Um, they've started to evaluate talent a lot different, because everyone believes that their projections or their internal analysis and analytics are better than everyone else's. So the Snell signing that happened today, I think, just signifies that more than anything. He's betting on himself. This is another platform year for him. He has a chance to go out here, have a really strong year, and then re-enter free agency again next year, and then maybe he gets his $100 million deal. But yeah, him and Logan Webb at the top, that's about as nasty of a 1-2 that it gets on a team. So, well done, Giants, with your offseason. Bravo. You guys can't see me clapping, but I'm clapping. Um, so yeah, very fun here with the Giants and what they did this offseason. You really love to see that from teams. Want to see more of that. But they also had some subtractions. They lost some guys. The Giants did. They lost Jock Peterson, but they replaced him with Jorge Soler. They traded away Haniger and DeSclafani, but obviously they replaced them too. Um, and then Brandon Crawford, I was hoping they would bring him back. I like to see guys in one uniform. I've said that damn near every episode now. Um, but I really wish they would have kept him. I get it. He's a little older now, not as productive, but it would have been great. And then they lost JD Davis. They basically told him, "Hey, look, man, we got Matt Chapman. See you later." Uh, so the question here for the Giants is, did they do enough? Is it enough, Giants? And to me, I'm looking at the bullpen too. Bullpen has question marks as well. I don't know. They're still not better than the Padres to me. Now, I will say this about the Giants: they have a little more depth because I forgot I didn't mention this, but they also have Robbie Ray, who they traded for. He's projected to come back at some point this year, maybe All Star break. But Robbie Ray's coming off Tommy John. He's in the middle of a 5-year deal, $100 million deal. Giants have to pay him out for the next few years. We'll see how that works out. But if he comes, if he comes back healthy, that's a great option to fill out the rotation. And then they also have Alex Cobb, who can also be a solid, 4 or 5. He'll eat up some innings. Uh, so they have some depth here. They got Kyle Harrison too. Their young prospect. He's a consensus top 15 prospect. Um, he was part of the 2020 draft class, the small, rare 2020 draft class. He's got a great fastball. He's been tearing up the minor league, so we'll see what happens with him. Um, but outside of that, yeah, if Jordan Hicks doesn't work in the rotation, then they got Keaton Wynn or Mason Black, who are a pair of other prospects that maybe come up. So they do have depth. That's one thing the Padres don't have. If the Padres start losing guys, it's scary. But here with the Giants, you know, you're replacing middle tier players with other middle tier players if guys go down. So you don't really lose too much. And I think that's what the projections are looking at, Pacoda, what they're looking at. But I don't really see a lot of upside here. And I have a lot of concerns with their defense, and I have a lot of concerns with their athleticism. Matt Chapman, obviously at third, and Patrick Bailey behind the plate. Those are two of the best defenders in the game. But outside of that, I mean, it's scary for that defense, man. So I'm not that high on the Giants. I honestly think this is about an 81 win team. This is the definition of average to me. They're about as perfectly average as a baseball team can get. Um, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. So we'll see what they do. And it's a tough division too, man. So we'll see what they do. I think the Giants will finish in fourth in the division. And again, no disrespect, but I just think that the other three teams are better than them. And that's my analysis on the San Francisco Giants as we transition to a team that made a extremely exciting World Series run, and that's the Arizona Diamondbacks. Pacoda's got them at 85 wins, y'all. 85 wins. 85 wins is interesting. Um, I don't know where I'm at with them. Let's go through this together because I'm still not sure where I'm at with Arizona. They're a weird team to me. I I do like what they do. I like their style of baseball. This is a style of baseball that I typically preach. Guys like to call it small ball. I like to call it baseball. They got a lot of fast guys. They got a lot of guys to put the ball in play, and you know they put pressure on opposing defenses, and it eventually leads to defenses cracking. So I like their style of play. Um, but the question for them now is, what are they going to do now that everyone's watching? This is not a team that's just gonna surprise people anymore. Like, no, we saw you go to the World Series, dog. Like, you put us on notice, and okay, now we're noticing. What are you gonna do now? I'm not gonna say it's easy, but when no one's paying attention, you can kind of cook. But when you got a lot of attention, it makes things a little different because now you're expected to win. And with that expectation, they got better on paper, and they said, you know what, Torey Lavalu, manager of the Diamondbacks, we're going to extend you. That was the first thing they did this offseason. They said, Torey Lavalu, we are extending you for another couple seasons. We like what you did with this team. We like that you went to a World Series, and we want to see more of it. So they brought their manager back. In fact, they're bringing a lot of guys back. They're bringing their core back. We're talking about guys like Corbin Carroll. We're talking about guys like Christian Walker. We're talking about guys like Ketel Marte. Um, you know, mainstays in this lineup. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. brought him back. Gerardo Perdomo brought him back. So yeah, well, not brought Perdomo back, but he's returning to the team. So they got a lot of returning guys. They've got a lot of chemistry here. They've got a good clubhouse. You can tell that these guys are out there having fun. So what did they do? They just added more guys. They said, "Hey, look, we're gonna get better." So they brought in Eduardo Rodriguez. That was unexpected, if you ask me, because if you remember last offseason, or not offseason, but last trade deadline, Eduardo Rodriguez was going to get traded to the Dodgers, and he was like, "Nah, fam, I'm not playing on the West." And then comes the winter, and now he's playing on the West. So, bit of a surprise there, but I mean, they get a pretty consistent and established pitcher with Eduardo Rodriguez. Inked him for 4 years. I think that's a great deal. You get him until he's 35. Um, and he's coming off of a career low ERA year. So I think that is the perfect fit, especially considering that pitching's a little bit of a concern here. And we'll get to that after we go over them adding Jock Peterson as well. Jock Peterson brings them some much needed power. He can give them, about 20 home runs in that ballpark, I would say, as a lefty. And then they brought in Randall Grichuk. He essentially replaces Tommy Pham. I don't know if he can replace Tommy Pham in the clubhouse. His leadership, his hunger to win. I really think they should have brought him back. He was pivotal to their run to the World Series last year, as well as Longoria. They both came up big in October. If you remember, Longoria had that huge defensive play in I want to say it was against the Brewers. There was a line drive that was smoked down the third base line, and he saved a couple of runs there. So him and Pham made some pretty impact plays, and neither one of them are coming back. So I wonder how that's going to impact the clubhouse because they had some vets, some leaders, and some guys that wanted to win. And then they also brought in Eugenio Suarez, who you can argue is on the decline, but he still provides you enough thump to where it doesn't even matter. And then he does bring some strikeouts with him. He led the league in strikeouts, if I'm not mistaken, or he was like top 5% in strikeouts, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but with this lineup, you can withstand some strikeouts here because everyone else is putting the ball in play. You know, uh, all the way down from Corbin Carroll, all the way down to Lourdes Gurriel Jr. 1 through 6, they're all putting the ball in play. Alec Thomas at the bottom of the lineup is putting the ball in play. So, sure, you get a 150, 200 strikeout guy, it's not the worst thing ever, especially if you got guys on base and he's popping home runs. So I really like that pickup too. And he's got a solid glove. So and another thing about Suarez too is he's durable as hell. This guy doesn't miss games. I like it. The lineup looks versatile. It's built well. They had Jordan Lawler. He was gonna come and be in the lineup, but they sent him back down to AAA. They're gonna let him cook a little more. And you get Christian Walker, who's been around for a while now. It feels like he's been a Diamondback for as long as is anyone, and he's going to be a free agent after this season. So he's saying he's open to a return, but it looks like the Diamondbacks haven't extended anything to him, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does in a walk year. Maybe Christian Walker goes off because he's like, look, man, I'm trying to get a deal here. He's a little bit of an older guy. He's 33 right now, but he's thinking, hey, look, I'm trying to get an extension here, so I'm gonna go off, and I can see that happening. Now, getting into that pitching staff, this pitching staff is top heavy. Um, it's very top heavy. Luckily, they don't have that Bumgarner contract anymore. Thank goodness to Diamondbacks fans, because what a disaster the Bumgarner contract was. That was one of the worst contracts in the league for a little bit. So he's out the door, and now you got Zach Gallen at the top of the lineup. He's a strong Cy Young candidate. You got Merrill Kelly slotting in second there. Nice number two. Eduardo Rodriguez at third. Um, but this is where things get chippy. This is where the question marks come in. You got Brandon Fott. He's kind of proven that he's not the most consistent when it comes to being a starter. That was a little problematic for him last year. He struggled in October too. He got pulled out early of a game, if I'm not mistaken, during their World Series run. Um, their pitching depth is just not great here. So if they lose a guy to injury or something, I mean, I don't know how they make it throughout the season when it comes to pitching. They're gonna have to swing some trades for sure, because I just don't know what they're gonna do. Um, they got a righty in Christian Mena, but he's been inconsistent and he's still in Double A. He's still cooking, so you don't want to rush him too much. So it just kind of leaves you wondering, like, what are the Diamondbacks gonna do when it comes to the regular season? Postseason, they've got a nice three-headed monster there. That works well in a 5-game series. But to get through the slog, the marathon of 162 is going to be a bit of a challenge for them, I think. I don't really see where they get consistent starting pitching. And I think that's a bit of an issue there. Um, they're just gonna have to call up guys and develop them and kind of hope for the best. But at least their bullpen is pretty decent. Bullpen put us on notice last October with guys like Kevin Ginkel, what a name, and Paul Sewall and Joe Mantiply and those guys. They came out. Miguel Castro. They came out and they had a hell of an October. They were as pivotal as anyone when it came to their run. So I like their bullpen. I think their bullpen is good. But then again, when you start overextending guys, and you start getting guys to, especially relievers, to start pitching multi innings, and you're talking about pitching 3 times a week, things get a little chippy there, and it's like they become less effective. So I'm a little worried that the bullpen may get stretched a little thin during the course of the season, but we'll see how it holds up. Um, so they really just have a thin margin for error here when it comes to pitching. The Diamondbacks do. And I think that over the course of a season, that can kind of bite you in the ass. I'm not gonna lie. So um, that's the big thing that scares me about this team. Their offense, I have no worries. I think they'll be a stronger offense than last year. So I'm just a little concerned with that. But outside of that, this is a well-rounded team. I like what they got going there. They got some juice, man. They got some swagger, and they're coming off a World Series run. They're feeling themselves. We'll see how they answer the call. And then we got our last team here. Some will say this is the best team in the league. No question about who we have winning this division, myself included, and that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. But before I do that, I got to do my coin toss here. Do I think the Padres or the Diamondbacks will finish second in this division? And you know what? I think I'm going to go with Arizona. I think Arizona will slightly edge out the Padres for the second spot in the division. And the only reason I say that is because their lineup has a little more depth. Um, but over the course of the season, man, San Diego with that starting five pitching, I really do like it. Um, but I'm just concerned about their lineup depth. So it's just like, it's lineup depth versus pitching depth. Which one am I taking? And yeah, I think I'm gonna take the Diamondbacks to slightly edge out the Padres for that second spot in the division. With the Giants fourth, Rockies fifth, and then no question about it, the Dodgers, who should win 100 games, no question about it. They should win the division. Pacoda's got them at a 99.6 playoff percentage. You might as well just put that at 100%. They've got an 18% chance to win the World Series, second best odds in the entire league. There's one more team in the NL East, the Braves, that they believe are World Series favorites. But yeah, I mean, there's not too many bad things to say about this Dodger team, right? Man, they're just a team that seems like they just do everything right. The Dodgers, um, more than ever. I mean, this is always true, but this year more than ever, you you got to win the World Series. And that's just what it is with this team. Um, when Mookie came out and Mookie said, he was like, "Oh yeah, when we play every team, it's going to be their World Series." He said it poorly, but I know what he's saying, and Mookie has a point. You know, the Dodgers, they're going to have a target on their back. They are expected to win. When you're expected to win, like I was saying about the Diamondbacks, it's harder to win when you're expected to win. And the Dodgers have been perennial contenders for a decade at this point. They won in 2020. That doesn't satisfy their hunger though. That's not enough if you're a Dodger fan. Um, so this is really the year for them to go out and go out there and win it all. I mean, this offseason, I mean, they probably had one of the greatest off seasons that I can remember. Obviously, I mean, they brought in Shohei Otani. Even if you're getting half of Otani, because Otani's not pitching this year, but he's such a freak. Now, being a diehard Angels fan, I've seen Otani do some freakish things. If he somehow just comes back and pitches in October, I wouldn't be surprised because he's just a freak like that. And they also brought in Teoscar Hernandez in that lineup. So an already strong lineup consisting of Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith. They brought in Shohei Otani and Teoscar Hernandez. Absolutely insane. How many 30 home run guys do the Dodgers have? Mookie can hit 30. Otani can hit 30. Freeman can hit 30. Muncy can hit 30. Hernandez can hit 30. It's absolutely insane. This lineup is crazy. Um, their guys are a little bit older, but at this point, it doesn't even matter. When you're this damn good, it doesn't even matter. This team I mean, it's freakishly good. Um, you know, Gavin Lux is a little bit of a question mark. We'll see what they do with him. Unfortunately, I think they're gonna have to option him and send him back to Oklahoma City, and he's gonna have to play for the AAA Dodgers. Unfortunately, Gavin Lux, but you know, even Gavin Lux as your 9 hitter or your 8 or 9 hitter, I mean, I'll take it, right? You know, James Outman, we'll see what he can do. He came in, he burst onto the scene. He'll be playing center for them. He kind of fizzled out, but we'll see what happens with him. The Dodgers fixed Jason Hayward. He looks like a younger version of himself now. Like, what the hell's going on? Uh, but my real concern here for them is the left side of their infield. If there is anything to nitpick at on this team, uh, it is really just the left side of their infield. Muncie's questionable at third. Uh, Mookie, I- I'm as big a Mookie fan as anyone. I believe the guy can do anything he wants to do. He's an uber athlete, but placing him at short is just kind of questionable. I don't know how it's going to work out over the course of the season, so I'm a little concerned. And then they got Gavin Lux at second. I know that's not the left side of the infield, but that's the middle of their infield, and I I I just don't know about that either. So I don't think the Dodgers are done. I think they got one more piece that they're gonna try to swing here. Uh, Miguel Rojas can play some infield defense for them, but it's like, do you really want his bat? So I don't know. And then they got Kike. They brought Kike back. Kike's the Uber utility man. You can place him anywhere. Maybe they sub him out once they've put up 10 runs on a team, right? They sub Gavin out, put Enrique in. Maybe he comes in and he does some damage. Um, but yeah, they got some defensive question marks on their infield there. Um, Outfield, Teoscar Hernandez. I'm a little concerned about his defense, but whatever. Other than that, I mean, the lineup is just about as good as it can get. Uh, Will Smith, I believe he's coming up on free agency, so we'll see what they do with him. Um, Other than that, I mean, this Dodger team, that lineup is extremely strong. Um, and then you got the rotation. Jesus, they brought in Tyler Glass now. If they can keep him healthy, he's as nasty as anyone. They brought in Yamamoto. Uh, if he pans out, he's as nasty as anyone. He's been up and down during the spring, but again, it's spring. Who cares? Even if he's getting beat up in April and May, who really cares? As long as he's good for October, that's all that matters. Because for the Dodgers, again, you have to win the World Series. You have to. And then they got Bobby Miller. They got Gavin Stone. They said Gavin Stone's going to fill out their fifth rotation spot. They got Walker Bueller coming back. That's nasty. They got Dustin May coming back. That's nasty. They got Clayton Kershaw coming back. Tony Goslin, Emmett Sheehan. So they got depth there. A couple of those guys are gonna have to be in the bullpen. With an already strong bullpen, with guys like Evan Phillips, guys. They brought back Joe Kelly. They got Ryan Brazier, Alex Vesia, Blake Trinan, Daniel Hudson, Ryan Yarbrough. I mean, yeah, they've got some pretty talented guys here in the bullpen as well. So this is an extremely well-rounded team here. I mean, at this point, you don't even care about the farm system if you're the Dodgers, but they still have a top 5, top 10 farm system there. I forgot they brought in James Paxton. He's going to be in the mix. Um, yeah, the Gratterall, they got him in the mix. Uh, yeah, when it comes to arms, I mean, you can never have too much pitching. And that's the Dodgers' philosophy here. And I'm with them on that. Get as much pitching as you can because guys are going to get hurt. It's unfortunate. No one wants to talk about it, but guys are going to get hurt. They have guys that are hurt now. There's question marks for the whole team when it comes to arm health from their pitchers in particular. So to go out there and just stockpile arms, I mean, that's the right move. So again, this is a team that's just doing everything right, the Dodgers. Um, If you really want to talk about any prospects, because I was watching the spring breakout game, they have this guy George. That guy is blazing fast. We'll see what happens with him. I think he's a few years away. They got Diego Cartaya. He may be the Will Smith successor if they don't bring Will Smith back. Andy Pages, he can come back, maybe compete for an outfield spot with Outman. Who knows? Uh, and yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say about this team. Uh, they lost JD Martinez. Obviously, they lost Julio Urias to his whole legal battle that's going on. They lost Shelby Miller. But again, these are all footnotes in a team that is just incredibly talented, should win over 100 games, and genuinely should win the World Series. There's only really a couple teams in their way when it comes to that. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is a very, very good team. Very exciting time to be a Dodger fan. If you are one, you have Shohei Ohtani over the next 10 seasons. That pains me to say as an Angels fan. But yeah, this is a team that is doing everything right, has done everything right. Now it's just about winning uh playoff games. Can you win playoff games? Because you gotta win, yeah. You gotta win the NLDS, so you gotta win 3 games there. You gotta win 4 in the NLCS, and you got to win 4 in the World Series. So can you win 11 games before you lose 4? That's really the question here. And I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't. This is a very strong team, and there's not really much else to say about this Dodger team. So Pacota's got them at 100 wins. I mean, at this point, who really cares? I think they'll shatter that. They should. Well, the division is strong, so maybe they won't shatter it, but they'll definitely be in that 100 to 105 range. Uh, I don't see a world where they don't. So, yeah, that's the NL West. I think this is about as fun as a division as it gets. This is like the NL version of the AL East, if you ask me, because there's just a lot of competition here. Um, the Rockies, they're just kind of standing there looking like doofuses. They look like clowns in a division full of teams that are trying to win. And that pretty much does the NL West. So we got one more of these, y'all, before opening day. So next week we're gonna do the NL East. And then after that, next Thursday's opening day, y'all. And it's officially baseball season, man. I cannot wait. Uh, I'll be going to opening day here in Vegas. Obviously, that's a AAA team, but it's still live baseball. It's still something to celebrate, and very exciting time for most fans, honestly. Unless you're like an Angels fan or or a Rockies fan or a Nationals fan or something like that. Otherwise, um, good time to be excited for a lot of these teams, especially since we're on the tail end of this 30 team preview. So I'm rambling, but thank you guys for listening as always. We got another one of these next week. Um, and yeah, follow us on all our socials at From the Dish on everything. That's Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, FromTheDish.com. We got new blogs that are coming out this week. And just stay tuned. This thing is just now getting started. It's very exciting. It's very fun. It's been a lot of work to do these deep dives, but I wouldn't rather do anything else. So I appreciate y'all tuning in. And we'll be back at it again next week. Have a good one, y'all.